Okay, so welcome students to another session of quantity surveying on contracts management, wherein we are learning regarding contracts and tendering processes and all the things regarding those. So in the previous session, we were looking into this part wherein we were studying what is meant by a valid contract and what are the few essential elements, right, of a valid contract. So we have studied a few things. We have to cover this free consent and requirements of a law with regard to form, right? So the remaining things we have covered in the previous class, that is lawful subject matter, legally competent parties, valid consideration. Okay. So what do you mean by free consent? In general terms, can anyone tell me? Is free consent andre ಏನು? What do you mean by free consent? Free consent in general terms. No answer. In general, free consent. Andre, you are agreeing without any pressure, Allah. Free, you are you have not done any mistake, you are not under any influence, you are not under any pressure, you are freely agreeing to that particular contract. It is free consent. Okay, it is clearly understood by both the parties. All the terms and conditions of the contract should be clearly understood, right? And then under free consent, we have various types. We have the first type, that is mistake. Okay, if it is a mistake, your contract is not considered to be valid. Okay, so in this case, the consent is totally absent. It is totally absent, meaning your permission is totally absent. Your consent is not present. So mistake may be either of a law or a fact, meaning you might have been you might have done a mistake regarding the law of the land, right? Regarding the law, you have not considered anything, and by mistake you have got into this contract. You do not know the law of that particular country, of that particular state, or a particular any firm that you are any department that you are working with, right? So without knowing, if you have got into that particular contract without by mistake, right, without knowing the laws of the land, so that is considered a mistake of law. But that particular mistake cannot be an excuse. You cannot give an excuse that you, by mistake and by mistake of law, you have got into the contract. So that is no ground of relief from a contract. You can see that is no ground of relief from the contract. So you cannot give such an excuse. You cannot give a excuse of a mistake of law, right? So everyone should be knowing the law of the land, and should be knowing the law of the particular department or the particular state, right? You cannot give any excuses. So this kind of mistake will not be entertained, and you will be having to pay the fines and penalties, right? Then the second thing is mistake of fact, meaning some by any fact that you have missed from the contract, or by but that should be from both the parties. The mistake should be happening from both the parties, right? Only then the contract can be considered as void, or else the fine has to be paid by the party who has done the particular mistake, right? So this is regarding mistake. I have told you. Then mistakes can be of many types. You can read mistakes can be of nature of contract. By mistake you have not read properly what is the nature of contract, right? Various types of contract we have. Under that you thought it is a different type, and you have entered into that contract. Okay, so person in contracted with, it can be a mistake. Then mistake regarding quality, mistake regarding quantity, and hence many other things also you have. Mistake regarding price, you can see, and all the other things. Okay, so coming to misinterpretation. Meaning misinterpretation is used in the sense to indicate innocent or willful misinterpretation. Okay, innocent in the sense you had no idea regarding that particular thing, and because you have been given wrong data, you have been given misinformation, hence you are innocent, other person is doing fraud with you. Athara ಏನಾರಿದ್ರೆ, if that is the case, then your contract will be considered void and you will not be fined anything, right? Because it is not your mistake, it is the wrongdoing of the other party who have willfully done the misinterpretation, right? Misrepresentation of what? Misrepresentation of information, right? They have given you wrong data, they have given you some wrong things, and they have got you into the contract, so you are innocent, right? So it is nothing, it is just like a fraud that that others have done with you. Fraud is what? It is nothing but to deceive, right? To deceive. It is done by someone willfully. It is not not done like by mistake, but they have willfully thought and they have done this fraud with you. Okay, so you were innocent in this is in this particular thing, and misrepresentation has occurred. So you are not held accountable, and hence you can opt out, and yeah, the contract will be considered as void. Okay, so an examples for misrepresentation may be misrepresentation regarding the information of the site, right? Regarding the site location, or regarding site resources, right? Resources, they might have given wrong information. Then then a misrepresentation regarding that the site is clear, but you go there and you check that the site is not clear, right? And there are no roads, there are no connectivity to that particular land, but in the contract they had mentioned that there is connectivity, proper site is clean and all those things, right? Land is not acquired previously, but they have given you work. ಆ ಥರ ಏನಾರಿದ್ರೆ that is that the facts that they have given are not true. So what has happened? Misrepresentation of data has happened with you, and you have got into the contract. So you can call out that particular thing, and you can opt out. Okay. Then the next thing here is coercion. Coercion, you can see coercion. Coercion is defined like coercion is nothing but going against Indian penal codes, right? Any contract which is against or prohibited by the Indian Penal Code, right? We usually hear the terms IPC, right? Indian Penal Code, some number will be there, right? So if any of the contract is going against or it is forbidden by these IPCs, then it is called as coercion. Right. So if any coercion is occurring, then that particular contract will be termed as void. Okay, so this is the meaning of coercion. Then under influence andre in under pressure, under pressure, or you have been put pressurized to get into that contract, you have to do it, or some any pressure of any kind, blackmailing with you, any kind, or any influence that the person, the owner or the department has done with you, right? So under influence, if any contract has occurred, that will be also considered as void, but that has to be proved properly in the court of law, right? So coming to the next thing, that is the essential element of a valid contract. The fifth element of a valid contract is provision of law with regard to form. Provision of law with regard to form. That is in standard document formats. It is nothing but you have to give all the documents in standard formats. They have standard formats that all those forms, all those formats you have to properly follow, and the tender document you have to submit with signatures, with proper signatures in written. In written you have to submit, right? Signature of both the parties should be present on the tender document, right, on the forms. And usually this is to avoid any disputes and any other quarrels that occur, that may occur in the future, right? And then you can tell that you have signed on this contract, we have that contract in written, and now you cannot do this, you cannot act out, or any mistake if you have done, any disputes if arise, right? This tender document with forms and sign from both the parties will be useful for resolving any disputes, right? So in standard formats, all the documents should be present in writing, and signature of both the parties should be present. Okay, authorized persons should be signing those documents. Okay, so this is a provision of law with regard to form. Then coming to the next thing. Okay, here if you see if there are any joint partnerships, right? If there are any joint partnerships, then both the parties, both the parties and both the partners, right? Both the partners or any number of partners, if they are there, all the partners should be held equally accountable, and they all of them should have signed that particular tender document and the contract, right? Not on behalf of anyone, only one contractor has signed, others are not signing. That should not be followed, but all the contractors who are involved, all the partners who are involved should be signing into that contract document, right? So that is also very important. Okay, so these are the five main points regarding elements of a valid contract. So I hope that part is clear. So if you can let me know whether this part, all the things that we have covered till now is clear, and should we move on to classification of contracts. We have learned classification of tenders. Now we will learn classification of contracts. Okay, Uttam Bisaji has raised his hand. Raise your hand. You have raised your hand for any doubts, or that it is clear? Or
Clear, sir.
It
clear?
is clear, sir.
Okay, no problem. Okay. Next thing, very important, classification of engineering contracts. Important. Classification of engineering contracts. You can see categories of contracts are divided into four major parts: separated, management type of contracts, integrated type of contract, and then discretionary. Okay, so contract can be any type, right? Not only civil, but the contract can be in any other department also. Not only regarding civil engineering, but various types of other contracts are also there. So this flow chart or this particular chart gives you an idea of all the type of contracts that can be done, or all the type of contracts. So we shall look into all of these one by one. All of these we shall look into one by one. Very important. All of these are very nice, very important, and you should know all of these. So first, we shall discuss a few important ones. Okay, few important types we shall discuss here. So the first one that you usually see is piecework contract. Piecework, as the name suggests, it is nothing but giving contract for a small piece of work, or a small piece of work of many number, right? If you have many number of works which are small in number, right, and which are distributed, and all of those are same, right? Or it may not be same, but similar it may be, right? And you have to give a contract for this particular thing. So it will be called as a piecework contract. Piecework contract, right? So for an example, if you have excavation work, or if you have patchwork, which requires unskilled work, right? Whenever you have unskilled work, and if you have small pieces of work in large number, you give out contracts which are called as piecework contract, right? So this kind of contract we call as piecework contract. Then a few merits and demerits you can see over here. Merits and demerits of piecework contract. So merits of piecework contract, it is like it is suitable for small work, right? It is very suitable for small work. Then since it is unskilled work, and not too much skill required, so skilled labors are required, it is very economic, right? And it can be finished out very quickly. It can be finished out because instead of moving from one piece to another piece, right, successively moving from one piece to another piece, completing the first piece, then going to the second piece, then third piece, fourth piece. Instead of doing that, if we give all the pieces simultaneous labors, and to give them work continuously, right, simultaneously, if we start all the work by giving piecework contract, all of that can be completed simultaneously, and your work will be finished quickly, right? So that is one merit. And then if you have small works which are spread out, we can give out piecework contract. So it is very beneficiary in that particular type. Okay. Regarding some demerits, work, what usually you will be seen on the field is workers will become lazy, because they will be paid based on daily wages, right? So what workers will do, they will try to increase the number of days required to complete that particular piece of work, because they want more wages, right? Daily wages they are paid on. So the rate of progress hence will become less. Because of that, what will happen is the rate of progress of the work will become low. So that is one demerit. Then we require some professional this thing what supervision is required, because the workers are unskilled, right? So we need to supervise them. And then because these works are spread out, right, we need a large number of supervisors also, because work is also spread out into a large area. Okay, so this is regarding piecework contract. Piecework contract. Okay, now coming to lump sum contract, you have learnt regarding lump sum, right? Lump sum rates, lump sum item of works, and any work which is given in lump sum is called as lump sum contract, right? So lump sum contract, any what is lump sum contract? What we do usually here is we fix a specific amount and a specific amount of time, right? We specific money, we fix specific amount for that particular project, and we set a particular time limit, right? And we give out a contract. We do not usually give out details, we do not give out schedules, and we do not do measurements, right? Main thing is measurements are not involved in lump sum contracts. We only give them direct amount, and we tell them you have to complete this particular work with this specification, plans and drawings within this particular time limit, right? So only plans, specification, drawings and all those things are given, but no measurements will be done, and amount will be not paid in a bulk amount, right? It will not be given out for each item. It will be paid at the end, usually within after the completion of the project, right? So that is lump sum, wherein no measurement is done, and a specified amount is fixed for that particular work. So if it is like a contractor, what will do, he will try to complete the work in advance, right? He will try to complete the work in advance. Contractor will try to complete because he will try to save some wages of labors, right? So it is beneficiary for the contractor if he finishes it within time. So it is also beneficiary for the owner or the department, right? For the client, if the contractor finishes the work within that particular time. So it is that is one merit of this particular lump sum contract. The contractor will try to finish yeah, within that time, or before the time, right? Before the deadline. So that is beneficiary for the contractor as well as owner. Okay, then reduction in cost of construction due to competition of contractors. So because it is beneficiary for the contractors, many number of contractors will try to apply for this particular contract, for this tender. So because there is high competition, there will be less rate, right? The contractors will try to give less amount, right? They'll try to work for less amount because of the competition. So that is beneficiary for the client. Okay, then one more merit is the amount spent on the work is already known well in advance. It's not like you measure after completion and then pay with respect to the measurements. What we do in lump sum, we just give them a fixed amount and you have to complete that particular work in this amount itself, right? So that amount is well known to us before our advance, right? Instead of after measurements, after the completion. So that is one merit of a lump sum contract. Right. So it is a demerit for the contractor if the work is increased, right? Because in lump sum contracts, even if the amount increases, if the construction cost increases or the time is getting delayed, owner will not give you extra amount. So it has to be paid by the contractor. So it is a bit risky for the contractor. So that is one demerit of this lump sum contract. So the contractor has to properly execute within time and within that particular amount itself, because the owner will not give him extra amount, because that is what is called a lump sum contract. The owner will just give you a fixed amount. If you complete it with all the specifications and all the plans and drawings, with all that specification, with less amount, right? With less amount, then it is profit for the contractor. And if the amount exceeds, right, then it is loss for the contractor. That is one demerit. Then, if the specification and drawing are not clear, may lead to difficulties and defective construction. That is also one demerit. If the specification and drawing are not clear, then what will happen? Then there will be difficulties and in execution, and you will get defective construction. This is regarding lump sum contract. Then moving on to third thing, that is item rate or unit price contract. Item rate or unit price contract, all the contracts that we have studied up till now is regarding this unit rate, uh, right? Unit rate or item unit price contract, wherein what we do is we fix one unit rate for every item of work, right? Every item of work, one unit rate is fixed, and that is done at the signing of the contract, right? Whenever the time of tendering at the time of tender, that particular unit rates of each item of work is agreed upon, right? So that rate are fixed during the signing, and after the construction is done, what we do, we do the detailed measurements of the work is actually done, and then you will pay by the whatever is executed, right? Whatever quantity is executed, you take that quantity q, multiply by the unit rate r, right? And then calculate the total amount. So this is what usually is done in the contracts. This particular item rate or unit prices followed. Usually this is what we do. Also in the previous chapters also we have done using this thing also. Measurement is done, that is quantity calculation is done, unit rate is multiplied, and then the total amount is calculated, right? So unit rate or item price. So no disputes will occur. Why will no disputes will occur between contractor and owner? Because the contractor will be paid by measurements, right? So even if the owner says that if you build something extra, the contractor will build, then measure that particular quantity, he will add it, and then it will be multiplied by the rate, and he will be paid. So no disputes will arise if in the increase of the quantity or increase of the scope of the work, right? There will be no disputes within the owner and the contractor. Okay, then if any drawings and specifications are changed, that is also not a problem. They can be changed, okay, not in lump sum contract, but here drawing and specification can be changed, no problem. Okay, one more merit of this particular type of contract is finalization of bill is done after taking the measurements, right? Hence it is economical, right? Because we are doing detailed measurements, and we are not just giving approximate values, because it is done exactly by measuring, so it will be economical. Okay, so not like lump sum. So coming to a few demerits, you can read on a screen. So demerits is the final cost cannot be determined before the completion of work, right? So this is one demerit but it is in lump sum contracts, we will be knowing the total final cost of that project, right? We'll be knowing in lump sum, but in here we will be getting to know that final cost only after the completion of the work. Okay. So scrutiny is required, right? Intelligent scrutiny is required, because what will happen is usually contractor will try to reduce the quality and all those things, and because he will try to gain some profit. So that scrutiny is always required in this type of contract. Okay. So coming to next thing, that is cost plus percentage contract. Cost plus percentage contract. So this is one more type, wherein what we do is usually cost, whatever is the building cost, right? Whatever the actual cost of the building, that is paid. Actual cost of the building is paid. Plus what we do, we pay a fixed percentage, right? For his overhead expenses, for the contractor's overhead expenses, services, and profit. For overhead expenses, for his services, and for profit, we fix a certain percentage. That percentage is usually 10%. Right? So actual cost of the building plus some profit we pay. So this is called as cost plus percentage contract. So there will be no dispute in this particular type of contract, right? Because actual what is the cost of the building, that will be paid, and also some extra amount of profit will also, extra percentage of profit will also be paid. So there will be no dispute for carrying out any extra item of work. Okay. Then work can be completed quickly because decision can be taken independently by the contractor. Hence, the work will be completed quickly. Okay, coming to a few demerits, final cost cannot be determined. Same thing as the demerit of the item work contract. Same demerit will be here, because cost will be known only after the completion of the work. Okay, quality of the work may be poor. Quality of the work may be poor. because the contractor will be paid actual cost of the building will be paid to the contractor, right? So what the contractors will do, they will try to reduce the quantity, reduce the quality and get the amount. So you require some proper checking of the workmanship. So that is there then. So I hope you have understood what is meant by lump sum contract, what is meant by piecework contract, item rate contract, and cost plus percentage contract. So coming to the next is labor contract. Labor contract. As the name suggests, you can see only labors will be given on the contract, only labors, and the material will be supplied by the department. That is nothing but labor contract. Only laborers will be called for work and material will be supplied by the department or by the owner. That is meant by labor contract. So coming to a few merits. So material will be stored by the department, right? No problem. The department will be storing and will be supplying. So the contractor will save some amount, and the site storage will not be required, right? So storage problems are eliminated. Then regarding standard quality of materials can be achieved because the department will be supplying, right? So whenever you are the owner and you want to supply for your own building, for your own construction, if you want to supply, you will always give some standard or good quality, right? And that is how you can control on the quality and you can get good quality of materials. So merit, that is coming under merit. So next thing, coming under demerits, there will be no there if there is any delay regarding the supply of the materials, if there is delay from the department, from the owner, that delay will be problematic for the contractor, right? Because laborers will be sitting idle on the site if the material is not arriving on time. So that is one problem. Then a large storage area is required, because what the owner or the department will do is, whatever material is required for a particular project, right? Any project, if you want to construct, if you are the owner, what you will do is, you will dump the entire material and you will store it at a certain place, right? Not instead of one bag, if you will not order the cement, right? You will order in bulk for the entire project usually, or for half of the project if it is a very large project. You will order and you will have to store it in a particular place. So large storage area will be required, right? Large storage area is required. And so if there is any theft from the storage area, right, that is also one problem. So this is regarding demerits and merits of labor contract. Labor contract wherein only laborers are considered in the contract, no materials. Okay. Then coming to negotiated contract. Okay, so here we can see no tenders are called. No tenders are called if you have certain contractors which are known to you, right? If the department has some contractors who that have done previously work for them, who are well known to the department, who have done certain similar kind of works for them, right? And they are very experienced and very bharosemand, what we say, right? So if they are very known to you and experienced, what the department will do is, they will directly call them and negotiate a few terms, and they will directly give the tender, give the contract to them, right? Instead of calling tenders. So that is called as a negotiated contract. And this is usually done in special circumstances, right? Not usually this is followed whenever there is an emergency, right? Whenever there is an emergency, usually this kind of negotiated contract can be given, right? So in an emergency, like construction of shelters for displaced persons, right? Or whenever there is any natural calamity, you want to construct anything, like any emergency construction, if you want to do, then usually we go for negotiated contracts, right? Instead of calling tenders and all those process, which takes a lot of time, usually we negotiate with the contractor directly, and then we give them the contract. Okay, so I hope you have understood what is meant by negotiated contract. So coming to target contract. So this is a very interesting one, target contract. Right? Target contract, wherein you can see it combines the best features of cost plus percentage, and cost plus fluctuating fee type contract. So the cost of the actual building will be paid to the contractor. Cost of the actual building will be paid. Okay. and work performed under the contract plus or minus certain amount agreed percentage of saving. Okay, so what yeah, if they give you some target, what the owner will tell you, this is the deadline, and if you finish within certain time of this deadline, right? If December is the deadline that is given to the contractor, and if the owner says that if you finish by July itself, by July, right? If you finish by July, right? So you will be given some extra percentage. You will be given some extra percentage among the savings, right? Among the savings, because you have finished we have finished before the deadline, right? If you finish within this time, you will be getting some extra percentage from the savings. From the savings, you will be getting some extra percentage. And if you finish by no by October, if you finish, you will be getting some percentage of the savings, right? Suppose here you are getting some 10% of the savings, here you will be getting some 5% of the savings, right? And if it is you finish by December by the target itself, then no problem, you will be getting 0%, because you have finished on the target, but you have not finished before the target. Right? So target is December, but if you finish within that time, if you have a large gap within the target date, then certain extra amount from the savings will be paid to the contract, right? So some agreed percentage will be there. Previously, we agreed percentage and some agreed timeline, right? So say they will give you some July and 10%, and then October 5%. So if you finish by January, then you will get 20%. There some agreed percentages will be there, right? Agreed percentages will be there, and if you finish on target value, then that percentage will be paid to you. Okay, so this is target contract. So this is coming, this is a recent origin, and nowadays it is becoming very famous. Okay, usually you will be seeing these kind of target contracts. So this is regarding type of contracts. So let me know whether you have understood what is meant, what are the different important type of contracts which we have discussed. So if you have any doubts, if you want to ask anything regarding classification of contracts or type of contracts which we have discussed. Important types we have discussed only, okay? Many other types are there, but we have only discussed a few important ones. Okay, so this is regarding classification of contract. So usually a question will be asked in the exam to explain any of these contracts, right? Lump sum contract, they will ask you to explain, or item rate contract, percentage cost plus percentage contract, right? And then target contract, maybe they might ask you, and all these remaining things, right? Design plus build, turnkey, build, operate, transfer, we shall look into later. These are special type of contracts we shall look into later. Okay, so let me know if it is clear, and can we move on into subcontracting after this? Balu Patel, then we have Jyoti over here.
Yes, sir.
Yes, are you listening? Are you active?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Subcontracting, we shall move into subcontracting now. Very important, very nice concept. You should know this subcontracting. Okay, so whenever you have a large project, very large project, you have very large project, and such a large project that no contractor can do the particular project by himself, right? A very large contract wherein that particular any contractor cannot execute by himself or on his own without others' help, right? So what in that particular condition, what the contractor will do is he will divide that particular large project into smaller pieces, and he will give that particular piece of work to another contractor, right? So a large project that will be divided, and each piece of work or each item of work will be given to separate contracts, right? Which are similar to each other, or one group of work will be given to one contract, and second group, say up to plinth level, you execute one contractor. From plinth level to say some five levels, one contractor. Then finishing work, other contractor. and plumbing work to another contractor. Atara, one large project will be divided into different categories and will be given to smaller contract. Right. So this is a general idea of subcontracting. So one more consideration is one contractor will not be knowing all the things from a contract, right? Suppose you are giving some larger apartment building for contract. You are giving some large apartment building. So that apartment building will be having RCC work. RCC work. Then that apartment building should be done with finishing work, plastering work, all those things, finishing work, then tiles, flooring work will be there, then there will be electrical work, then there will be plumbing work, like plumbing we have to do, then painting work will also be involved. So one contractor may not be experienced and may not have the expertise in all the things, right? All the things he might not be knowing, or he might not having the resources for completing this particular thing, right? So now what happens in such a case is, when you have a large number of items and you want to execute that, one single contractor may not be sufficient. So what will happen is, one contractor will be taking this particular contract for execution. He will take this apartment building for construction. Say some contractor who is usually called as the main contractor. He will take up this tender and he will apply and he will get the contract, main contractor. Then he will divide this particular based on the categories. RCC work, someone will do some small contractor, he will give the contract for the RCC work. RCC work he will divide and he will give it to one contractor. Then plumbing work he will give to another contractor. Plumbing work will be given to another contractor. Similarly, some group of work like some painting work, that painting work will be given to another contractor. Right. So these are smaller contracts which are given are called as subcontracts. Right. Smaller contracts which are divided are called as subcontracts, and the work or the contractors are called as subcontractors. Right. They are called as subcontractors. Okay. So the main contractor is called the general contractor, or the main contractor. Right. So the client will give some conditions to the main contractor, right? And the main contractor will have to give the security deposit, right? So the EMD which he pays, right, earnest money deposit which he pays initially, so that earnest money deposit after getting the contract is converted into security deposit. Okay, so the main contractor will pay that security deposit, and that conditions which are given by the client to the main contractor, right? Some GCC general conditions, right, or whatever we have learned, those conditions and all those specifications, all those things will be given from the client to the main contractor. The same conditions and the same specifications will be given to the subcontractors also. Okay, the same will be conveyed to the subcontractors, like it will not be given differently, right? Whatever is from the client will be have to passed on to the subcontractor. That is the condition. Okay, then subcontractors also need to pay some security deposit to main contractors, right? Because he wants some assurance, right, that they will complete within the time with the specifications given. So the subcontractors also have to pay some security money. Okay, so here now, can you tell me, for the subcontractors, for the work, or now who is responsible for the work of the subcontractors? Is a main contractor responsible, or is client responsible for subcontractors? For the work execution, for the quality of work, for the timely submission of work, who is responsible for the particular work, for that particular things of the subcontractor? Is the main contractor responsible, or the client responsible for the workmanship
Main
and the
subcontractor.
quality? Right. So main contractor is,
contractor.
yes, very good. So main contractor is responsible for the subcontractors. Client will not be in touch with subcontractors. Client is not in touch with subcontractors. Main contractors is responsible for all the actions of the subcontractor. Okay. So main contractor cannot complain to the client regarding subcontractors. Main contractor, right? Main contractor cannot go and complain to the client regarding subcontractors, because they are not involved with each other, because you have hired these subcontractors, right? Main contractor has hired the subcontractors, so the client is not responsible for anything. So it is a whole responsible of the subcontractors is on the main contractor or the general contractor. Okay, so these are a few general things regarding subcontracting. Getting into details, as I've told you, it is very difficult to be a specialist for all the kind of work in any project. So what we do, we divide certain kind of works and we give subcontracts. Right, the main contractor will divide the work and he will give subcontractor. There will be some profit, right? There will be profit for the subcontractors also, right? There will be profit for the main contractor also, because without profit, no one will do the work. But make sure there is following of the specification and quality, that there is no compromise in that. Okay. Okay, classification of subcontractor, very important. Classification of subcontractors. As we have classified contracts, right? As we have classified contractors, as we have classified them, similarly we can classify subcontractors also. So depending upon the type of agreement the main contractor has entered into the subcontractor, depending upon that, we can classify them into different kinds. So you can see here subcontract agreement can be divided into these parts. So either they will be asking the subcontractor to do the design service, to do the construction service, or do both of those. Okay, they might ask you to do only the design, right? So subcontractor will be giving they will be giving you only for design work, or they might be giving you only for construction work, or they might give you for both construction and service. Okay, so these are the main three classifications. Okay, under this there will be only for construction. Okay, only for constructions we have many types. You can see only labor, only material. They'll ask you only to supply labor, only to supply material, or any special equipment if you are needed, that only they might require. So subcontract only for supplying equipment. Okay, then a combination of any of these three, any combination, labor plus material, or material plus equipment, or material plus labor, right? Or all the three. So combination of these three are the different types of subcontracts, right? That can be given. So coming to a few details of these things, for a few details. Now for labor only, you can see here, for labor only, we shall look into the details. Okay. So these are known as general subcontractors. Okay, we shall know a few names or terms for these type of subcontracts. So if you are taking only labor contract from the main contractor, okay, from the main contractor, the main contractor has given you a subcontract for supplying only labors. So you are called as general subcontractor. You will be called as general subcontractor, or also they are referred to as petty contractors who only supply you the labor and only supply the labor. Then coming to material only, such type of subcontractors are also called as vendors or suppliers, where they only supply the client or the department or the main contractor. They will supply material only, right? So they are called as vendors or suppliers, or also called as supply contract. This kind of contract is also called as supply contract. Then coming to next thing, you can see here, coming to this thing that is called back-to-back contract. So here what will happen is the owner or the client will give or the client will give a contract to a certain person, right? Main contract will be given to the main contractor. So what that main contractor will do is he will give the entire work, instead of dividing it, right? The entire work he will give to another contractor. Entire work to the subcontractor, he will give it to the subcontractor. Entire thing he will be given directly, no dividing. So this is nothing but called as subletting, right? Subletting, or called as back-to-back contract, right? Back-to-back or subletting, wherein the entire project will be handed over, right? So this is called as back-to-back, right? So what happens is to an owner, certain contractor is very known, right? Very known, very related to that contractor, to that owner, right? Friendly to that owner. and has some good relationship. So what will happen is that particular contractor will take the contract from the owner, and he will directly sublet it to the subcontractor. So this subcontractor will be very powerful. Also, he will be very experienced, and he will be having some good status in the community, right? That he can execute the entire thing. He can be the main contractor, right? But because he is not able to contract to the owner directly, he will contact the main contractor, and he will get the entire project, right? He is very much eligible to become the main contractor, but because he does not have some good relationship with the owner, right? He is not well known to the owner. What will happen is there will be some main contractor, all the intermediate one that is present, right? So owner will give to the one who is known to him, and that person will give that to the subcontractor. Okay, so this is called as subletting or back-to-back contract. Okay, coming to labor and material equipment. So in this you can see labor will be given, labor will be supplied, material will also be will be procured by the contractor himself, and equipment also will be got by the contractor. So all the three things will be done by the contractor itself. So these are called as specialized subcontractors or specialty contractors. Okay. So in such cases, sometimes these contractors are specified by the owners themselves, right? So owners will specify themselves these kind of subcontractors, right? Main contractor will be there. So the owner will tell the main contractor to give the subcontracts to these special persons, right? They will be referred by the owner himself. So in such cases, those subcontractors will be called as nominated subcontractors. Nominated subcontractors. Okay, so this is regarding labor, material, and equipment. Coming to the next important thing is regarding selection of subcontractors. Selection of subcontractors. How you have to select. If you are the main contractor, how will you select the subcontractors? How will you give them the work? How will you form the document? All those things, right? Because there has to be some agreement. Some contract between the main contractor and the subcontractor, right? There has to be some legal binding between these two. So what is the process? The same process that is followed between the owner or the client and the main contractor. Whatever we have learned up till now, right? Whatever is the process between the department or the client or the owner and the contractor, main contractor, same procedure has to be followed between main contractor and the subcontractor. Okay, the same procedure has to be followed between these two. Similar procedure or the same procedure has to be followed. Okay, so what it consists of? The same thing, the floating inquiries, right? Inquiries will be given out, then collecting quotations, like giving out tenders, and then getting quotations for that particular tender, and then evaluating that particular quotations, evaluation of that, and then sublisting, shortlisting, right? Shortlisting of the contractors, and then giving out work to them. Right? So giving out work to them is nothing but giving out work order, right? Giving out work order, how the client will give the work order to the main contractor. Similarly, the main contractor will give the work order to the subcontractor. Okay, so all the things between main contractor and the subcontractor are legally binded. Okay, because without legal binding, subcontractor will be free to do anything, right? Because he cannot be held accountable under the court of law if you have not legally binded him in a contract. So make sure legal binding is always there, and after that, after everything is done, then work order can be given to the subcontractor to carry forward with the work. Okay. So I hope you have understood what is meant by subcontracting, what are the various types of subcontracts, and what are the subcontractors called as. Right? I hope it is clear. I hope I'm not getting going fast, or it is not going monotonous. Okay. So few terms and conditions, these are not very important. Same things which are terms and conditions which are there in the main contract, right? Main contract, those same terms and conditions will be coming in between main contract and subcontractor. Right? Same contract, same terms and conditions are also present here. Okay. Regarding subcontractor management, some general things regarding subcontractor management, like you have to divide properly, right? If you want to give subcontract, you should not give in for a petty item of work, right? You do the bar bending for one contractor, shuttering work for one contractor, concreting work for one contractor. Atara, you should not divide for individual things. What you can do is starting from form work and bar bending work and reinforcement work up to concreting work. All of this can be given to one contractor. Right? This can be given to one contractor. Then regarding any other combination, right? Painting work, entire painting work from putty work, from whitewashing up to surface finishing, all those things can be given to one contractor. That in that way you have to manage the subcontracting, right? You have to divide based on the type of work, similar works, all the remaining works you have to club and you have to give contract, right? And make sure you give properly to subcontracts, right? Work order, because you just the laborers should not be waiting on the thing for the previous subcontractor to finish, right? You before finishing the wall work, if you give the subcontract to the painting work, right? So that person will be waiting for the subcontractor of the wall to finish, right? So such delays should not be given. So subcontract management is also very important. These are general things, not very technical. So that is based on management skills. Okay. So that is what I've told you. Avoiding idling of the subcontractors crew. Avoid idling, meaning you just you do not make them sit idle, and because they will be given payment, right? Daily wages will be given to the laborers, right? So make sure that is not the thing. All the time the labor should be should have some or the other work to do, right? So they should not be sitting idle. Okay. So that is regarding subcontracting. All the things regarding subcontracting we have covered. So any doubt if you have in subcontracting, you can ask. Any doubt if you want to share anything, if you know extra things, if you want to share, you can share with your friends. Jivan, then we have Ninganna. Are you there listening?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So please, all those who are listening and active, can raise your hand and let me know. Raise your hand, those who are active and listening. Let me check. Let me check who are active and listening. Please raise your hand, those who are listening to me. All of those who are listening, please raise your hand. Please raise your hand. All of you, please raise your hand, those who are listening. Uttam, Chetan, Hiremat, are you there? Bharati, please raise your hand if you are listening and active. Kiran, we have Kiran. Then Akshay, if any doubt, please ask. If anything you want to share, you can share any extra information, anything. Okay, you can lower your hand. You can lower your hand. This is all regarding subcontracting. I have told you what are the names of various subcontractors. Also, I've told you, right? You might have heard general subcontractor, right? Special nominated subcontractors, all those things. So those are coming under subcontracts. I've told you what is the process and how you can give the subcontracts, and a few technical things regarding subcontracting. Okay, so moving on to the next topic. The next topic is EPC. You can see EPC, engineering, procurement, and construction. Engineering, procurement, and the meaning of this in general thing. In general, engineering, procurement, and construction. You can read here. It is design, procurement, and construction. Andre ಏನ್ರಿ ಇದರದ ಅರ್ಥ ಏನ್ರಿ? What is meant by this? Design, procurement, and construction. It is entire thing is given to the contractor, to one contractor. Okay, entire thing. So what is the difference between engineering EPC contract and a normal contract? EPC contract and a normal contract. Can you try to identify what is the difference? Which part is not considered in a normal contract? Which part is left out in these three: construction, procurement, and engineering, or design, procurement, and construction. What is left out in the normal contract? What is not considered in a normal contract? Which one we do not consider in normal contract? Do we not consider construction, or do we not consider procurement or engineering, or the design part? No idea. See, usually what happens, the owner or the client or the department, they will have the designs ready with them. And designs will be ready, specifications will be ready, all the required things will be ready, drawings, plans, all the things will be ready. That will be given to the contractor. That will be given to the contractor and told to execute. Right, that will be given to the contractor, and that will just has to be executed. The materials have to be procured, the materials have to be bought, they have to be procured, and construction has to be done. Right, so that is nothing but the usual contract which we follow. Right, procurement and construction is what is done by the contractor. Engineering or the design is done by the owner or the client or the department. Right. So this is now in this particular EPC contract. In this EPC contract, what is done is the engineering or the design of the elements, right? The specification of the elements is also done by the contractor himself. Contractor is responsible for the design, for the procurement of the materials, for the construction. All the three things are done by the contractor. Right? Design is also done. Design is also not given by the owner. So this is called as an EPC contract. EPC contract. So I hope you have understood the difference between a normal contract and an EPC contract. So an example of this EPC contract, an example of this EPC contract is like when an owner or a client says to the contractor or gives a tender that that you want an output from that particular construction. You want to build certain thing, right? You want to build a thermal power plant. Say you want to build a thermal power plant, and that thermal power plant has to have a output capacity of say some 3 megawatts or gigawatts, right? Kilowatts, not kilowatts, in usually in gigawatts, right? Usually in that particular thing, at 3, 4, or 10, that is the output that is needed. So the owner or the client will say that you design, you get the materials, and you construct, and the output of that particular thermal power plant should be as per my requirement, say 4, right? So that is how the EPC contract is given out. Right? So owner will not do the design, owner will not do any drawing or any plans, right? Any engineering drawing, anything, all the things has to be done by the contractor himself, right? So that is an example of an EPC contract. Okay, so the contractor will have to do all the things. So the capacity will be given out by the owner, right? And as an example, I have told you, and the client can call or invite tenders. Okay. So here, what the client will do is he will call for call or invite tenders in EPC model, EPC type or EPC type of contract that will be mentioned. Meaning the contractor will have to do design, procurement, and construction. All the three. Okay, not he cannot miss any of these. Okay, all the three has to be done by the contractor. Okay, so. Here usually what will be the timeline? The timeline will be given to you. Okay, the timeline will be given, and that will be agreed by both the parties, and then the output that is required from the particular project, right? output is agreed upon and the contract will be given. So this kind of a contract is EPC contract, and the contractor is called as EPC contractor. EPC contractor. So we require such EPC contracts for any special kind of buildings, right? Any special kind of projects like thermal power plants or anything which is required to give some output, right? Capacity, say some uh, water treatment plant wherein some certain capacity has to be treated daily, right? Certain capacity has to be treated. So that particular contract is given in terms of EPC, engineering, procurement, and construction. So EPC contract is given out. Okay, so here a few features of a EPC contract. Few features: a single point responsibility. Single point responsibility meaning the contractor will be whole and sole responsible for entire thing, right? So there will be a single point of responsibility. The contractor will be responsible for everything. So single point responsibility is one feature of this thing. Then milestone basis progress. Milestone basis progress meaning certain milestones, meaning certain things are achieved. Certain things, say uh, in a dam construction, say in a dam construction, yeah, the owner or the client has given that you want a dam to be constructed of certain capacity, right? Certain capacity of storage, right? So once the contractor has taken that particular work and he has finished the foundation work, right? The shear wall work and all the foundation work is complete, then that is called as one milestone, right? Milestone that he has achieved, that particular part he has achieved, that is one section he has completed. So he will be paid for that particular work. Then after completing up to the level of gates, right? Up to the level of the gates, right? Up to that he has completed, that is also considered as one milestone, right? He has completed up to a certain section. So that will be, that amount will be paid to the contractor. Then next, after the completion of the whole pitching work and whole finishing work, that he has achieved one more milestone, right? So in on terms of milestones, right, the contractor will be paid. So total activities will be segregated into various set of activities, right? Various set of activities, and activities will be linked to particular milestone. So milestone andre milestone, what is this milestone andre? Milestone, what is this meaning of milestone? Mile is the measurement of distance. Stone is nothing but stone. Where do you see this milestone? What are they used for? Indication of what they are used, where and to indicate what? These milestones are used where, and they are used to indicate what? So I'll give you an hint. The highways, milestones. Nodere though milestones. Have you seen milestones besides roads, which indicate kilometers?
Yes, sir.
Kilometers, right? Kilometers, right? On the side of the road, on the side of the road, in this particular thing, you will be seeing, and they will be writing the place, name of that place, and the distance to that particular place, right? Say 48 kilometers, like this, right? To that particular place. So that is milestone. So once you achieve that in this particular contracting, what they are terming it is milestone achievements. Milestone achievements meaning milestone, if you one milestone if you achieve, or one particular set of things if you have completed, you will be paid that particular amount. So milestone basis of progress will be achieved. That is one feature of EPC. Okay. Then prescribed time limit, right? The time limit will be given to the contractor, and if the contractor is not completing that particular work in that stipulated time, so the liquidity damages, meaning any that is liquidity meaning any financial, right? Regarding monetary value, regarding money, liquidity. Okay, so liquidity damages meaning any if any delay is occurring, then the contractor will have to pay some fines, or there will be deduction from his security deposit, right? Deductions will be done from their payments or from their security deposit. So that is one feature of this particular EPC contract. Then fixed payment terms. Fixed payment terms meaning milestone performance. Here the contractor cannot just ask for payment in between, right? He has to achieve some milestone of work. He has to achieve certain specification, and at certain stage of work he has to achieve, and then only there will be payment that will be done. So in between he cannot ask for any payment, and therefore there will be fixed payment terms. So this is one feature of EPC. Okay, high degree of control, and there will be only single point responsibility, right? Contractor will be responsible, and he will be having degree of control, right? Because he has done the design, he has got the materials, all the things. So he will be knowing all the things, and he can have control over that, right? If the owner has drawings and specifications, right? If the owner has provided, then he does not have a much control over that, right? As per the client has told, he has to execute. But here, because he has designed, he will be having high control over the project execution. Okay, free from cost variation, because the contractor has himself given the design, right? So the contractor, as per his need, he will procure the materials, and if there is any variation because of any fluctuation, then that will be considered by the contractor, and he will make some arrangement, and he will get it properly as per the cost, so that it is not exceeding. Right? He always the contractor will try to get some profit, right? So free from cost variation, unless specifically mentioned in the contract, contracts are free from price variation. Right? So then the next thing is, the next feature is limited risk for client, because client is not responsible for any design, right? So entire thing is on the head of the contractor. So there is limited risk for the client. The main risk is for the contractor, but the rewards also are large, because whenever there is high risk, there is a high reward also, which is involved. Okay, so limited risk for the client, and but there is high risk for the contractor. So this is regarding what? This is regarding your EPC contract. So this is just a brief discussion regarding EPC contract. Okay, so there are many other things which are involved in EPC contract, but we have just looked into briefly what is meant by EPC contract and what are the general features of an EPC contract. Okay, for your level, this is just what is has to be covered as per the syllabus. Okay, EPC contractor, you have understood. I hope you have understood. Can you just confirm? EPC contract, is it fine? Shall we move on to the next type of contract? Are you listening? Are you there? Aziz is here. Yes, okay. Okay,
Yes, sir.
okay. Okay, EPC contract. Okay, so next type of contract, very interesting. Next type of contract is turnkey operation type of contract, turnkey operation. This is also a type of contract which is very similar to EPC contract, very similar to EPC contract. Turnkey andre ಏನ್ರಿ? Turnkey, how do you start your car or your bike? You put your key and you turn, then it will start, right? Usually your car. Turnkey, andre what the client has to do, he has to make sure that everything is ready. What the contractor has to do is, he has to make sure everything is ready, and only the key has to be put and turned, so that the particular project will start, right? Up till that he has to complete, up till turnkey he has to complete, and he has to hand over that particular project to the owner or to the department, right? So turnkey, up till the project is entire thing is ready, only the start or the ignition has to be given. Up till that part, up till that process, he has to complete the contractor has to complete the project, and he has to hand it over. Okay, the owner simply wants to turn the key, meaning how you start your car, right? You just put your key, the owner will come at the after the completion of the project, he will just put the key and he will start, right? So up till that he has to contractor has to finish, and he has to submit to the owner. Okay, and the owner will take over the facility, right? So this is very similar to EPC contract, but here the client will come and he will the contractor will finish, and he will hand over the project to the owner in turnkey status. Okay. Okay, so I hope you have understood this. This is a growing popularity. This method, this is very much preferred, right? Usually in large public sectors, contracting agencies like EIL Engineers India Limited, then L&T, right, Larsen and Toubro, L&T, then HCC, Hindustan Construction Company, often handle turnkey projects in India and abroad. Right. So these kind of turnkey operations are very advantageous when the contractor is not the contract agreement is not complex. Right? This is very advantageous because the contract agreement is not very complex. It is very easy and it is well understood traditional model. It is well established. It is well understood traditional model. It is not a new thing. It is a very old one. Okay. Here the reduced overall project time because construction begins before completion of the design. Right? So in this particular turnkey operation, the overall project completion time is reduced because the construction can begin before the completion of the design. Okay. Singular responsibility because the entire thing the contractor has to take care of the design, of the scheduling of the work, of the construction, right? All the things he has to take care and he has to make sure all the quality is maintained and everything is complete and then handed over to the owner or the client. Okay. For owner or the client, the risk is transferred to design build contractor. As in the EPC contract, right, the owner is at less risk, but the contractor has high risk, and also he has high rewards. Okay. So project cost defined in early stage, right, and has certainty. Not like the normal contracts wherein after the measurements are done, then the contractor is paid. Not like that. The project cost is defined in early stage and has certainty. So the project cost is previously defined properly, and then work is started because it is entire thing is in the hand of the contractor itself, right? So he can define whatever is needed. He can properly get the project estimate and then start the work. Okay, so a few disadvantages regarding turnkey operations. Turnkey operations not suitable for complex projects. Whenever we have complex projects, turnkey operations are a bit tedious to execute. So the turnkey operations type of projects are not usually followed whenever you have a complex project in hand. Okay, the owner has reduced control over design quality. What is meant by reduced control over design quality? So because owner does not do the design, right? Owner is not doing the design. Owner is not giving any specifications, any drawings he is not giving. So the contractor is responsible for that. So what can happen is the contractor can go for inferior quality of work, or if he can go for lesser for some inferior quality of design also, right? Design also he might go for lesser, and he want to have design with lesser with lesser steel. Instead, even if it is required, the contractor may try to reduce steel and all to have some extra profit, right? So the owner does not have any control over design. That is one important factor that is coming as a disadvantage in turnkey operations. Okay. Okay, you can see here changes by owner can be expensive, right, and may result in heavy cost penalties to the owner. Changes by the owner, it is very difficult because the contractor is doing the design, and if the owner wants to give some input in the design, so the contractor will usually retaliate and he will not try to incorporate any changes because it will be expensive for the contractor to have any changes in the design. So the owner cannot have any changes by himself in the contract in the design, right? So that is not an option in this type of contract. Only limited innovation is possible. Only limited innovation is possible. Not much of innovation can be done in this type of contracts. Okay. So this is regarding turnkey operation type of contract. Turnkey operation type of contract. So the first type of contract that we studied, a unique type of contract was EPC contract. We have studied first one. Second is turnkey operation. Now the third thing, you might have heard this particular contract, public-private partnership, public-private partnership, public PPP type of contracts, what we call as. right? Public-private. So when this type of contract is followed, when the government has does not have some funds, right? When the government has lesser funds for large projects, whenever the government wants to execute some large project, right, some infrastructural project, right, some large road work or some large building construction the government wants to do, but the government does not have some funds here. The government has some limited funds. So what the government do will they will do some partnership with public with some private sector. The government is the public sector, right? Government is public sector, and the government will do some agreement, or they will do some partnership with the private sector. What the government will do is they will get into an agreement or into a contract with the private sector, and give some contract to that particular construction to a private industry, private firm, and say some road is to be constructed between some two places. Some large road is to be constructed. So the government will say to that particular private firm that you construct this particular road, you construct this road for me, for the government you construct, right, as per the specification, as per the design you have to construct. And what you can do is, because I do not have funds to pay to you, yeah, I do not have funds to pay to you after the completion. What you can do is you can put toll booths. You can put toll booths on that particular road, and you can get toll, right? You can get toll from the road users, right? So yeah, the government does not pay after the completion of the project. The road users will pay as a toll fee, right? So the government will say you operate this toll booth for say for some 10 years. You get your profit, you get your money back for whatever you have put for construction as tolls. The owner, the road users will pay as tolls, and the owner and the contractor will get the amount back, right? And some profit also he might get, right? So 10 years, say 10 years, 5 years, 15 years, depending upon the scale of the project, the contract will be given to the public sector, right, to build and to operate. Right. So this is called as public-private partnership, wherein the partnership of government and one or more private sector companies are in agreement with the government. So this is called as public-private partnership. So it is refers to a very long-term contractual partnership. As I've told you, we put toll booths for 10 years, 15 years, and then that is handed over to the government, right? After 10, 15 years, after the contractor has got out his profit, only then it is handed over to the government. So that is a long-term contract. Okay, so it is termed as long-term contractual partnership. So usually this kind of public-private partnership is followed in for infrastructural services, like infrastructural projects, as I've told you, for some road work, maybe for any other infrastructural work. This kind of public-private partnership is done. Okay. So this is regarding public-private partnership. We shall discuss this in detail. Okay, this we shall discuss in detail. I think if I continue, it will be tedious for you also. Right. So a lot of things we have completed today. So I think we can stop here. Is it fine? Shall we continue these things in the next class?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay. A lot of things we are covering, and it will be confusing for you. Now, if you can cover a lot of things in one class itself, you will not remember anything. So this public-private partnership and all these things are very important, right? Public-private partnership. Then we have build, operate, and transfer. All those things are very important. All these concepts you have to understand clearly. So we will start this tomorrow, fresh with a fresh state. We will start, and we will understand what is this build, operate, transfer, BOT model, and public-private partnership model. All these things we will understand in detail in the next class. Okay, so if anything you want to share, any doubts, if you have anything, if you want to ask, you can ask. You have time. Kelri, any doubts, if you have anything. I hope you have understood. Right, important topics. All these are very important. Every civil engineer should know all these things: contracting, subcontracting, public-private partnership. Right, all these things should be known. Okay. Anything from your side? Anything? Any doubt? Any questions from your side? Yes or no? Please reply. Anything you want to add? Nothing? Okay. Okay. So you can give your attendance. Give your attendance. Don't exit the session. Please don't exit. Give your attendance and wait. Everyone give our attendance, please, quickly. Those who are active listening.